Hi there everybody, good afternoon or good morning, depending where you are. Welcome to the Quirkos July workshop. Today we're going to be looking exclusively at Quirkos Web, which is our new tool for qualitative analysis that allows you to work straight in the browser. So previously for Quirkos and a lot of other software you had to download and install software, and that's not the case now. So Quirkos Web allows you pretty much all the functionality that you have in the desktop app, but straight in your browser without having to install anything. So that makes it a lot easier to get going with it, to work on your data wherever you are. It also allows you to work on phones and tablets, and there's dedicated views for those as well. But it also kind of means that there are a lot more devices, including Chrome OS devices, that you can use Quirkos on now. And it makes it a great tool for collaboration as well, because it's so easy for lots of people to get dug in a project together. And there's no kind of issues with compatibility, so it doesn't matter whether actually people are using the desktop client or the web client, you can still kind of collaborate and work together. So I'm going to give you a bit of a tour and a kind of step-by-step guide of using Quirkos Web, some of the features that we've recently added and some of the things that are still to come, and how it can kind of help kind of get out of the way is the idea, and then help you kind of focus on your qualitative research data. So if you go to the Quirkos website, all you have to do is hit here for the web app, and then this lets you get going. So you need a Quirkos login. If you don't have one already, you can sign up here. The sign up gives you 14 days free trial. There's no restrictions on the trial, so you can still do all the collaboration, unlimited projects. It only works for 14 days, that's all. And you can cancel in the account page at any time if it's not for you, or if you want to come back to it later. So the data's stored for a year, so you can start and stop your subscription as you need it. And then once you've registered your account, you'll be able to log into Quirkos, which is what I'm going to do now. And I'm in. So when you log into Quirkos, it's quite similar if you use the desktop version as well. You've basically got this list here of all the different projects that you've been working on previously. In my account there's quite a lot, going back quite a large number of years. So I can search through those as well if I'm looking for a particular project. I've also got the list here of projects that were shared with me. So these are projects actually that other people have been working with, and that means that they can share a project and I can work on it, and we can work on it together and live. So my projects I can share with other people too. There's an example project here. Just click on the share button, it says invite new people, and then you can choose to give them just read-only access, so they can just look at the project, or read-write, which allows them to kind of edit, create things, import documents, create codes and do coding and everything basically. And you just need the email address of someone else who's registered to Quirkos, and then you'll be able to do that. There's also buttons here to download the project file, download it as JSON data if you want to export it and bring it in someone else, and to delete the project from Quirkos Cloud as well. You've also going to import projects here, so if you've got an offline project already that someone sent you or you've been working on previously, you can import the project which is stored on your computer as well. And there's full compatibility between the offline version, the cloud version, desktop, working on the web, so anyone can work with anyone else that's using Quirkos, so that's the idea. You also kind of log out here. There's also options for help, and basically everything you need to kind of get going is here. Of course, the big button here is for the new project, and that's what we're going to do today and go through step by step. So I'll just click here on the new project button. We need to give it a project name, so we'll give this one webinar sample project. And then you've got the option here to password protect the project, so that's fairly straightforward. You just need to put in your password twice. Couple of notes, so we don't have any access to your data. We cannot reset a password. When you use the password, the project then becomes the data in the project then becomes end-to-end and encrypted at rest. And what that means is nobody can intercept it without the password to decrypt it, and nobody, including us, can access it even on the server. So it's to give the maximum level of security and confidence in the data. And we can talk more about the kind of privacy and data security measures that we've taken later. But basically the password protected projects are a great place to start, but there's no backdoor for anyone, and that includes us as well. So click on the create button, we'll create a new project, and we're ready to go. So we've got the title of the project up here. The main difference probably, if you've used the Quirkos desktop client before, is most of the menu options are now in a kind of standard web app kind of interface on the left. So we can go back to our project list here, we can generate reports, we can import the sources, we'll do in a minute, we can save it as other different types of projects, and there's help and different settings as well. And then the other buttons are pretty similar to the ones in Quirkos Web, and the basic layout and functionality works in the same way. In this example, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in some sources of data first. And these actually come from one of the example data projects that we have. So if you go to www.quirkos.com/workshops, you'll see we've got a variety of open source qualitative data projects, real and fabricated ones. This is a real one. It's one of the new ones we've not talked about too much yet, but we're going to be making a big deal of later in the year. We've done a project which is aimed to kind of help people teach and learn different qualitative analysis techniques, even before they've kind of got their own data set. And it's actually a series of interviews with professors of qualitative research, talking about their research careers, preferences for different types of qualitative analysis, but also kind of how they came to their career, their backgrounds, their disciplines, and things like that. So it's kind of interesting. It's quite interesting and easy to engage with, but it makes for a kind of fun practice and training data set. There's also a coded project here, which our qualitative researcher Kathy Gibbons did for us, and that allows you to see a project that was coded and worked on. You might want to interpret it in a different way, but we'll look at it later actually. It's kind of fun to see how an actual project looks when you've been doing some qualitative analysis. So I'm going to import the sources of data, and you can download them straight from here. I've already done that, so I just need to click on add sources here. You could also put in blank sources if you want to write in them or copy and paste things, but I'm just going to choose import. Oh, right, good, it's right there. And these are my sources of interviews, so these are just Word files here. I'll just click on the open button here. At the moment, Quirkos Web only supports the import of Word files directly. Next month, we're going to add all the kind of support that you would expect for lots of other different file formats. So that is in the work. But for now, it's just docx Word files. If you need to import other sources of data, for the moment, it's best just to do that in the desktop client. But that's coming in the next couple of weeks anyway. So I'm just going to click open here. Pop, 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 pop. And we've imported 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so the 7 interviews from this project. And you can see, so Quirkos Web now supports full HTML, full rich text. So you can have pictures in here, you can have bold, italics, headings, and a lot more ways to format and customize the text than you had before. And you can edit these sources of text too. So there's an edit button here, and again, this allows you kind of like full ability to kind of work with correct things in here. It now kind of pops to the right place if you find an issue that you want to fix and correct. So you can do pretty much anything you want to within the sources of text, and then you can just click tick to save at those changes when they're done. And now, great, well, that's in bold, so that looks a bit neater. What I'm just going to do now for your benefit is actually just go to the settings here. We'll have a quick look through them, but I'm just going to make the text size a bit bigger just so it's a little bit easier to understand. One of the things is it's a standard web page there, so you can zoom in and out with your is it control zoom, I think here. Yeah, so that allows me to kind of make the whole screen bigger, which actually I'll make it a bit bigger for the purposes of the webinar. But it's we can make the text bigger in the settings here as well. So yeah, we'll just put that up to the top. So highlight counter if you want to count the number of highlights going on in the Quirks. You can change the width of the highlight columns, the memo columns we'll look at in a minute. There's a kind of preview of how that looks here. And then different things that you might want to have generated in the report. Good, so now we've got our slightly larger text. Hopefully that's streaming a little bit easier anyway. And now we've got, yeah, looks like everything looks good. So the tabs are now kind of along the side here, which gives us a lot more space to play with actually. And they're also scrollable. There's also up here, you can this is really powerful. I mean, just to search for a particular name. But you can also search here for any of the source properties. We've not put anyone in here. So if you quickly wanted to find a source, from a particular respondent who's in a particular location or of a particular age, then you can search through them in here as well. So we can look at that again later. But yeah, lots of ways that we can kind of explore the data and load the different data sources here. So what we'll do now is look at the source properties a little bit before we start getting on with the coding, because it's kind of quite a good discipline, I think, to kind of assign the attributes to the sources as you put the data in. You don't have to do that, but it kind of helps keep everything together. So the source attributes are the source properties are the ways that Quirkos kind of keeps track of different things about your respondents or whatever data source you have. So for example, that might be age or location or gender. It may also be, if you're doing something like a systematic review, data like the journal, the title, the year of publication, and things that make it kind of more useful for you to kind of filter the data and find particular results from particular kind of subsets of your respondents later. And we'll have a look at how that works. So I'm just going to click here on the settings cog at the top right, and that brings up the edit properties for that particular source. We don't have any properties in the project so far, and properties are kind of project-wide things. So let's create a new one, and we'll call this location, and we'll add some new values while we're here. So these are the countries in this project. So we've got respondents, I think, from England and from Scotland. Australia as well. So we've created a new property, and that's location, and we've got three. Sorry, I accidentally deleted that. So we've got location here, and we've got to put in one value. So we'll put in England, Scotland, Australia. Good. So now if we save that, there we go. We've actually got the property created now. We can edit it later with that little cog button. We can say that this person came from England. And we can add as many of these properties as we like. So we might have another one called discipline. And that might be something like education. Oh, this person's health, actually. So let's put health in. Okay. Yeah, I misspelled that, so I can edit that here and change that later. Is it going to autocorrect me? Yes, good. My spelling is terrible. I'm so sorry. Good. So that's saved there, and then click save. Great. So our property, our source now, the David Health source. Now this has been assigned to have the properties that we said they were in England, and that their discipline was health. And we can do that for all the other properties here. So Roger Health as well. So we go to the properties here. So all those previous values we put in are already there. So it's quite easy to do that kind of data entry. So from the location, we can say that this person was from, let's say, Scotland. I can't remember actually for this person. And then the discipline, they're also health. So we'll choose health again and then save. Good, right. So we're kind of telling the Quirkos, we're telling the project some of the kind of significant, important things that we know about our respondents. In some of the other software, you might use folders and other ways to kind of group things together. We find this kind of way of doing the properties is quite flexible, and I'll show you kind of how we filter that and how we use that a little bit later on in the session. But what we're going to do now is some analysis and some coding. So we're actually going to start by creating some codes, getting on and doing a bit of analysis. Now, Quirkos tries to be as kind of approach agnostic as possible. So it doesn't really matter if you're doing something like framework analysis, grounded theory, thematic analysis, discourse analysis, IPA, in vivo coding, line by line coding, or any of the other kind of ways that you can approach the data. It's just a tool to help you manage that data and kind of keep it together in ways that you can kind of use it to explore the data. So what we're kind of going to do here is a kind of grounded theory, thematic analysis kind of approach, where we're just going to read through and we're going to look to see what themes we can create that kind of describe and start matching the data for us. So let's talk about messy data. Okay, so I'm going to start reading through this. Have you always been a researcher or in academia? No, I did one job at a time when what my mother terms a proper job. I did a master's degree in sociology, and then worked for 6 years for the National Health Service as a general manager. Okay, so what we can say is we can select this piece of text, and we can actually just drag and drop it onto the canvas here and create a new theme which we'll call proper job. Actually, let's just put that in highlights. So it's kind of like an in vivo code. So we're using the participants' own words to describe what's going on. There's a space here to put in a longer description. So we might describe what we mean by proper job. So idea that academia is not real work employment. And because we can do smileys, we can do like a winky face there as well. Great. Yeah, we've got a whole workshop coming up on emojis, but there's a lot more that we can do with them than silly stuff like that. So now we've created this code called proper job. This text is added to it. So it's actually still selected, so we can drag and drop and put this onto another code. So we can say this is about studying, because he's talking about his master's in education. We don't need to put a description in there. It's pretty self-explanatory, that one. We can change the color here. So there's a palette that it randomly chooses from, but there's like 60 million other colors that we can choose there if we want to. Sorry, I closed that without saving it. So I'll drag and drop this here. Say studies. Just choose a purple for now. Then let's also say this is about the NHS. Actually, there's health. So the National Health Service is something that's going to come up a bit more. So I have purple again. Good. Great. So now we've got one section of text, and we've added it to 3 different codes that we created kind of on the fly. And now when we this highlight column here shows us color-coded highlights for each of those sections of text, so we can see kind of visually the connections between those colors and the codes. And hovering your mouse over here will show you what that actually is. Now we've created these codes here. We might create some more. We can also, right click anywhere on the canvas where we want to create a new code or theme. They're called Quirks in Quirkos. And then we can say, have management. This person's talking about management. Color. Come on. This is not like that one. Not like that color. Oh, okay. So we'll just drag this here. Management career track. Management. Good. Oh no, it came up with the same color. Catastrophe. So what we can do is we can right click on this code here, choose edit, and then I don't think we used yellow so far. Good. 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 We can keep to a nice pastel theme here. So right clicking on any of the bubbles allows you to get to this edit view, and then you can change the title, which kind of happens pretty frequently really when you're re-evaluating what a code or theme kind of really means as you kind of add more data to it and work through more different sources. And we'll see how these things kind of evolve as we go through and do more coding. Now, what we might want to do is create another code. Let's create another one called career. No, let's call it employment. Is that color we already have? Oh no, it doesn't like that one either. So what I want to do is just have one. Let's go a little bit further. This is all about the NHS too, so let's add that to the NHS code. So we just drag and drop text on here as well. And let's create a new one, which we'll call employment options. Good. And then what we can do is drag and drop codes on here to create subcategories. So now one of the employment options we have is the NHS. What we'll do is the University's School of Public Health. We'll have university. It's also an employment option. And so we'll drag and drop that onto employment options here. We might have, this is actually about research, so it's kind of separate. Research job is a research career. So we can drag and drop these here, and we can create categories. We can also create subcategories. So it may actually be that research, we'll pull that out. Maybe that's something which comes under university, I'm not quite sure. So it could be. So we can drag that onto university as well, and then it could be a subcategory of that. So we can have these kind of nested hierarchies of codes, which allows us to kind of group things together, keep things neater when we start to have lots and lots of codes, and kind of connect things that might become a kind of broader theme later. So these are kind of flexible and you can use them how you want, but that's the kind of basic way to do that code management. And then, so this is the basics of it. So yeah, we create codes either by right-clicking here or dragging and drop some text onto the canvas, and then we code things to them as we go along. So that's now it's the kind of the fun and the tedious part of it, kind of going through, doing all that coding and interpretation, creating codes that we think fit the data, and then using the different colors and different ways to group it to kind of structure those together. I mean, I'm always a big fan. So in Quirkos, you have this kind of spatial view here with the canvas, and that means you can just drag and drop things around. So this idea about what's a proper job and employment options, you can kind of keep codes just together or have kind of like similar shades of colors to kind of help you navigate them all and kind of see what things are kind of coming together a little bit or kind of roughly grouped together. It's always fun when I get to see, which is not very often really, but when I get to see other people's frameworks and canvases that they've created and how, like, oh yeah, I know it's such a mess, but then to them it makes a lot of sense. They've got a whole bunch of things on a particular theme in one color, they've got things in a particular area that are kind of coming together, and it's just very easy and creative space to kind of think about those different codes and move them around. So that's how we do most of this work. What I'm going to do now is what I usually do in these webinar sessions is I cheat, and I'm just going to open a project, which is the project that Kathy coded on this data set, so we can just have a look and see how a kind of fully coded project might look, some of the features there, and then we'll look at some of the ways that we can use some of the views in Quirkos to kind of categorize and look through those. So we're just going to click to go to projects. There's no save button, so everything's constantly saved. So even if the computer kind of dies halfway through this, or you lose your internet connection, you won't lose any data. So you go to the project setting. We'll open this project here, the Qualitative Researcher Journeys project. So this is the one, wow, yeah. So this is the one that Kathy coded. And again, like, yeah, to her, this makes sense. To me, it's, yeah, I'm getting used to it, let's put it that way. But so she's got one of the major themes, because she wrote this up for a conference, which was on research vulnerabilities, an ESRC conference. And then, so this is one of her kind of key themes, kind of different aspects of vulnerability about qualitative researchers and in their career. So what things about self-belief and denial, the landscape we know. If we double click on any of the bubbles here, it shows us this hierarchy view, which kind of pulls out all the different subcategories we have there, so we can see it a little bit better. And by default, this shows us kind of all of those quotes from all the different sources. So you can see this one comes from Roger, this one comes from Matilda. If we click on it, it will take us to that place in the source. I don't want to do that right now because I want to go through and show this a little bit more. So the vulnerabilities code here, if we click just on that, it just shows us the data just from vulnerabilities. But we can also look and see what's coming on from the denial code. And anywhere here that we've got any sources of text in Quirkos, we can copy and paste them. So it's probably the most useful way to get stuff in and out of Quirkos really is if you're writing up a section in your report or your thesis about denial, one of these themes that you found in your data, you can just tick here to select all of the quotes, or you can untick certain ones that aren't relevant. You just tick the ones you want, and then you use the copy button to copy them, and then you can paste that into Word or PowerPoint or wherever you're writing up, and that allows you to have those quotes complete with the attribution, so which source they came from, to help you kind of have that kind of evidence base and to kind of illuminate the conclusions that you're making in your data. So you do that just by kind of double clicking on any of these codes, and then you kind of see everything that's under there. One of the things we can do here in the settings, I want to put on, by default, to try and stop you quantifying the data too much, it doesn't tell you how many codes things are coded to these different things, but you can turn that option on, and then it will give you a number here for how many times that's been done. I think if we reload that page, it should pop up. Okay, it needs to be reloaded. It's restarted before that will come up. But now we've got that data. Let's talk about one of the themes here. So one of the themes here is messy journeys. And it's one of the themes which came out quite a lot in this data set, is people saying that they didn't really have a very linear career to becoming a qualitative researcher in academia. They had a lot of side steps. It wasn't necessarily the kind of idea they had for their career path. So this has been quoted as messy journeys, and it actually comes, this is another in vivo code, it comes from one of the participants. I can't remember which one. Let's see if we can find it here. No, it's not the first one. We could run a search for it, which we'll do when I show you that in a second. But this concept of messy journeys is quite similar to this notion of kind of a proper job. So people kind of a little bit belittling their own career, and it's one of the things that comes out again in this vulnerabilities, self-belief and denial. So there are already some quite interesting connections going on in the data. What it would be great is if there was some way in Quirkos to kind of visualize those connections that's happening between the themes. Is there a connection between these vulnerabilities and people's career choices? Did they have to make them for financial reasons? Did they have to make them because there weren't opportunities in a particular discipline or field they wanted? So we've probably got some kind of sense of that from going through and doing this kind of coding analysis. But I didn't do this project, so I don't. What we can do is we can right click here on the vulnerabilities code. We can choose the overlap view. And now what this does is, okay, I'm going to need to zoom out a little bit for this one. Okay, just so you can see this. It shows us a kind of like a pyramid where the strongest connections are at the top. So here the vulnerabilities overlaps with this code Memo A, but Memo A is actually just where Kathy's kind of been keeping some of her own kind of thoughts and things, but the vulnerabilities overlaps a lot with advice. So that's one of the connections between the data here. You can see we've got numbers here which shows us how many times these overlap. It also overlaps with this theme, unsurprising. So it seems almost that vulnerabilities kind of expected a little bit of people at these searches in their career. Also vulnerabilities around students being difficult and people having expectations, and by clicking on one or more we'll see what overlaps there are. There's no overlaps, so we didn't code any piece of text to be about vulnerabilities and expectations and students being difficult, but there are vulnerabilities about students being difficult, and so we can go through and we can read those, and again we can extract any of these quotes anywhere we want. But always Quirkos is trying to get you to go back to the qualitative side of the data, so not rely too much on the fact that there might be more overlap for one thing or another, but to go back and read that and see what's going on in the data and if that is something significant. Okay, so let's go back to the home view and zoom in a little bit. Oh, out, sorry. Oh yeah, 4, 125. Yeah, that's a bit much. Okay. So you can zoom the separate parts of the canvas just using the mouse wheel actually, and you can drag and drop to move this around. And there's a lot more space in the web version to play with than there was in the desktop version, which a lot of people have been asking for. There's a couple of ways that we can look at kind of getting more into the data. One of the other things I've not shown so far is the memos here. So you can add memos. So I've added a question here to Kathy. Well, what happened to page 1? Is there something missing there? I think that's just how that came through from the transcriber. But you can select a piece of text here, say, and drag and drop onto there, and we can annotate that with a little comment from ourselves. This is very useful if you're doing something like IPA or in vivo coding. But in here, let's say, is this supposed to be a funny question? So that might be a note to myself, but it also might be a kind of note or question to someone else, or something that I want to highlight to go through and look back later. And if you're taking an approach where you want to go through and annotate the data before you start doing that very kind of analytic process of creating codes and themes, the memos is a really great way to do that, and it's attached there in all the results and everywhere you look at it. So one of the other ways, so the memos is a great way to annotate. Another great way to annotate, there's actually a chat function built into Quirkos. Now the chat is super useful obviously with when you're collaborating. So you can work live on this project with dozens of other people, or you might be working sequentially, and this will flash when you get a message, and you can chat directly in the app. But because it's saving it in the project, it does mean that you kind of get like a diary. So often, even if I'm working on a project and not collaborating with someone, I'll use the chat as kind of like a research journal, research diary. I'll say, today I'm just going to do some, I guess, refactoring. So you can write comments and notes to yourself or to your collaborators, this gets a kind of date timestamp in the project as well. So you can export it. You can export like your whole diary as a kind of spreadsheet, which is really neat. You can also, let's just look at some of the other things here. Now we've got these hundreds of codes. Actually, this is not too bad. It's not hundreds at all, is it? I mean, it's just a couple of dozen. But often you'll see projects, you'll start creating hundreds or thousands of, well, it's certainly happened. I've seen thousands of Quirkos codes in a project before. Not necessarily recommended, but there's a couple of ways, like the groups that you can use to selectively turn certain quirks on and off their visibility. But you can also filter them. So it's quite easy here just to do a search. So we're looking for, where's the one on advice? Oh, there it is. Great. And where's the one on careers? Great, there it is. Okay, so you can just show just ones that work for that, and we can add that to careers. Great, awesome. So yeah, the quick search there is pretty useful when you start having lots and lots of codes like this. There are also alternative views. So if you click on the button here, you can have this kind of list view, which is a little odd the way we've zoomed in, but anyway, it kind of allows us to kind of work with these. They work in the same way. So you can drag and drop here. You can double click here, you can move them around to create subcategories and so on. But this is kind of, if you've used some of the other qualitative software packages that have all the codes just in a list, this is a kind of more similar way to this. It's also useful because it expands out all the subcategories, and it also has, you can see the description a lot clearer. So it can be useful depending how you want to work. We'll go back to the canvas view here, and you can also kind of put things in an arranged order. So now we've got it in a kind of nice grid, which is like a little bit more useful. Zoom out so we can see that a bit better. But we can also choose how this is sorted. So we may do it by date that it was created, or the title if we want it alphabetically. We can choose whether it's ascending or descending order, and so on. So that can be quite useful as well when you start to have loads and loads of these as well. I should quickly mention while we're looking at the different views is one of the things that we've added recently. Oh, wrong button. Sorry. One of the things we've added recently here is the word cloud. So this kind of counts all of the words which are in the project and generates one of these funky word clouds, which is interactive and you can use to kind of play with the data. So we can see because, kind, no, research. So these are the kind of words that are coming through in the project. And if we click on any of these, like research, for example, we can do a search to see all the results which have the word research in them. So 11 instances that weren't coded to everything. Vulnerabilities has 61 instances of the word research in. Okay, so the word cloud is now a kind of interactive thing. If we bring that back. Because the other thing that we've now added is, which a lot of people were asking for, is customizable stop lists. So you kind of want to remove some of the most common words, like probably even like yes and so. By default, it's got a built-in list here of like the top 50 English spoken words. So a, all, and. But we can add other ones here. So let's put in so there, get rid of that. And yes. Maybe it's useful to see how often people say yes, I don't know. But now those don't appear, so we've kind of got a slightly better kind of view of what's going on there. So again, the thing to bear in mind with the word cloud, it's kind of fun to look at the particular words that people use, but from a kind of qualitative analysis standpoint, I often find it quite a limiting tool. Remember, it's just kind of counting instances of a word, and you've got to make the cognitive leap to put together different synonyms, and you need to think about how well this kind of is representing your data. But it's a fun way to kind of explore things that you particularly want to get into. So you might want to see all the instances people talk about their students and so on, and then that's quite easy to do, or their PhD. And it's sometimes interesting. Sometimes you see surprising things in there. But we'll go back to the main canvas view here. Oh, got my tea. Great. I should also say, as I just take a short comfort break, if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat if you're watching live. If you missed it and you're watching recorded, sorry about that. But you can put comments in there anyway. We will try and respond as soon as we can. And you can always email support@quirkos.com, and we're happy to answer any questions about the software or process or I mean, everyone who touches the customer support has done qualitative research before, so everyone's able to comment more on just the technical aspect of the software. So do let us know if there's a particular questions you have about implementing a particular kind of analysis or a particular kind of data, because we can help out with those kind of issues too. Okay, so what I want to do now is have a look at some of the filters that we can do on the data, so we can start kind of looking at subsets of our data and seeing if there are commonalities and differences there. Now, you might remember earlier we looked at this at creating these source properties. We click here, Bruce, education, logistics. What we've got is, we've described this person as male, they're in Australia, the discipline's education, and then other discipline. Okay, fine. So secondary, we wanted to keep that separate, but you can have multiple options in here as well if you wanted. So those are really useful to be able to look at results, for example, from everyone that works in a particular person, a particular location, or everyone that works in a particular discipline, and then we can see what commonalities are in there. And in Quirkos we use the query filter here to do this. Right, at the moment it's got our text search here, so we'll just remove that text search in here. We'll add a filter by property. So there's a ton of things that we can filter, basically kind of any information we have in the project. So who did a piece of coding, who created a particular code, and when, and if there's groups, or we want to see things just from one particular source, we can do a text search as well, and we can do also filter by any of the options. So for example, if we choose location here, so this is one of our properties, and then location equals, also got not equals here, so we want to see everybody that was somewhere else, for example. We've got the option here to see, let's see everyone that was in England. And now these are the results for our researchers who are in England. So this is Jackie, Danny, Caroline, Roger by looks of it. Okay, great. So this is kind of ordered by how often things were coded to one of the particular themes. So we've got vulnerabilities here. That was kind of the biggest one that we were coding to in this project. We can also look at training gaps, and this will show us, everything which is in the training gap here as it loads through for Jackie and Roger. And so these are the people that are from England. So this can be useful to kind of look at just a particular part of our respondents. But what we can also do is there's a button here which splits the screen in two and allows us to do two queries side by side. So we've got our results here for where people came from England, but let's see, add another one for, where's location gone? There, where location equals Australia. And so now what we've got is two queries running at the same time. Nothing? Yes, oh, there we go, good. It's so slow when I'm streaming because the data, the streaming data is prioritized. So what we can see here is now we've got the results from the people in England on one side and the people in Australia on the other side. So there may be some significant difference going on here, or there may very well not be. But what kind of is actually different is we've got this theme here, training gap, and it doesn't appear as much here. There it is. Right, so the participants from Australia were not as concerned by gaps in their training or bits of training that they were unable to access as the people in England. Obviously, it's a different educational system, and maybe that tells us something interesting. Well, I don't want to rely on the fact that there's just more instances from one set of people than another. I'm a qualitative researcher, not a quantitative one. So this view allows me to go through and read qualitatively and see what people are saying. What are the people in England saying about their training gap in their career? And what are people in Australia saying about the training gap in their career? So I can see that side by side, and I can read that different story, and I can see if there is something significant being suggested by the respondents there, or if it's just that I didn't code so much from the respondents in Australia, they just didn't talk about it as much. So again, Quirkos is always trying to get you to go back to the text and read in different ways. These filters, you can also stack them. So we've got location equals England, but maybe we also just wanted people who were in England that were in a particular discipline of sociology. And so we can add more and more filters here. Sorry, I overwrote the last one. But if we add here, add another criterion. So we can have, let's do what we aimed to do before. So location equals England, and then discipline equals sociology. And now we're seeing results. It might just be Jackie, yeah. Oh no, Roger. Okay, oh right, okay, right. There's quite a few sociologists in here. Okay, so now we're looking at people which are based in England and were based in sociology. So you can add more and more filters here, and you can also use this to filter your text search results as well. So if you just want to see what people in Australia said about the word research as opposed to the people in England, you can run those kind of queries as well. So it's a really useful tool to kind of explore your data once you've gone through the laborious but necessary process of coding in it. So I'm just going to click on home here, go back to the main view. Great. Okay. So those are really the kind of the main things that I was going to demonstrate today. We've had a look at bringing in some sources of data. We've looked at describing those with the source properties, and then just now how we can use those with queries to filter the data and see what's going on there. We looked at some of the alternative views. We've created codes and themes. We've moved them around. We've changed the colors. We've changed spelling where we've made spelling mistakes. And we've looked at other ways that we can store kind of project-based data and metadata, like with the memos and with the chat function as well. So I'll stop clicking randomly on the screen here to show things. So those are really the kind of the basics of using the software. Again, there's no restrictions on the number of projects that you can have with a subscription for Quirkos Cloud. The web client is going to be the basis of Quirkos going forward now. We're doing a lot of work adding new features and basically tweaking things to make it smoother and faster and a little bit more intuitive. So if you've got any suggestions, we always love to hear them. Do go and try and sign up for the free trial. Give it a whirl and see how you think. Give us any feedback. If if you've been using the desktop client before, again, we'd really love to see what you think about the tweaks we made to the layout, if it's making it better or worse. We're actively developing this a lot, so lots is going to be added to it. Month by month. And one of the great things about it now being a web app is when we make updates and improvements, you don't have to do anything. You just log in that day and all the new features are there. You don't have to download anything. You don't have to go to a different page. You don't have to do updates or anything like that. So everything's being kept right bang up to date. So just an opportunity now, because I can see there are quite a few viewers, if anybody's got any questions, but if not, that's all I'm going to cover today. And go to the website. There's also a lot more materials here. Learn Quirkos. So the manuals and tutorials here. There's video overviews, which is pretty similar to what I've done here. Step-by-step guides if you prefer kind of these, or there's a kind of like PDF guide that you can use as well. You can pop to how to edit the source properties, and they'll kind of take you through that particular bit. Step-by-step guide here, which kind of takes you through generating a kind of typical project, and you can always contact us, so don't be shy. We're here to help. We check the emails 7 days a week, so we try and get back to you as soon as we can. So just email support@quirkos.com if you've got any queries. And yeah, no questions today, so thanks so much for coming along, and yeah, hope to see you using Quirkos and answering your questions soon.